think I was in the Rainbow parking lot, and I just left and drove to Bernal Heights and met her at 231 Cortland Avenue. And there was no walls or anything, but it was a corner space, and I just kind of imagined it.
That was Pinhole Coffee owner JoEllen Depakakibo. I'm Jeff. Welcome to Storied San Francisco, a weekly podcast where San Franciscans from all walks of life share their stories, and you get to know your neighbors. In this podcast, JoEllen picks up where she left off in part 1, with her move to San Francisco. She started working at Blue Bottle in Hayes Valley right away. The company sent her to New York City to open some new cafes there, but after a year, she decided to come back. While resuming her work at Blue Bottle here, she started to put together a business plan that eventually became Pinhole Coffee in Bernal Heights, which, by the way, is open during shelter in place. Here's JoEllen.
I woke up that one morning, I remember, in April 2006. I'm moving to San Francisco. So it was becoming an actuality, a reality. So I let Intelligentsia know that I was leaving. And then someone that worked at the roastery at Intelligentsia was like, well, there's this little coffee shop that's operating out of a garage. You should apply for it. So I was still in Chicago, and I think they didn't have a website, and it was just a Yelp page that they had. Mm-hmm. It was for Blue Bottle. They had like 20 reviews, and I think Yelp also was pretty new at that time.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So I got the contact information and emailed them and just said, if you guys are hiring, I'm moving to San Francisco with some coffee experience. And then a few weeks later, I got a call from James Freeman, who was the CEO of Blue Bottle. I think they weren't as organized back then, and he was just saying that they wanted to hire more females, of course, because I think it was just a male-dominated company at that time. And they were operating farmers markets at that time. They were looking for someone to lead that and work it. So, yeah, that's what they hired me for that position. I mean, there's a longer story behind all that, too, but we don't have to get into it.
It's up to you.
Yeah. Well, I should mention, too, there was someone else that was getting hired around the same time. His name's Jared Morrison. And they ended up giving that manager position of the farmers markets to him. And then Blue Bottle was telling me that they have some wholesale accounts that are hiring that I could apply for. But then a few days after that, they called me back and said, we need more help with the farmers market. But Jared Morrison is now the CEO of Sightglass Coffee.
Oh, right.
So we were hired at the same time, fighting for that position.
There's totally, I mean, I know of, in addition to Pinhole and Sightglass, there's like a handful of coffee shops that have kind of spawned.
It's amazing.
Out of, right? Yeah.
It's countrywide, like Tandem Coffee is one. They're in Portland, Maine. Mm-hmm. And just a bunch of others, but
yeah, I think that really speaks to what Blue Bottle was doing, right?
So Jared Morrison was employee number 7. I was employee number 8.
Wow. So how was it? You show up on your first day, like what?
It was really interesting. As I said, they weren't as organized, I think, back then. So my interview was, I just had to make James. He asked me to make him a shot of espresso and a cappuccino, I think, on bar.
Like a test. You're I already work here, weirdo.
So I just made him espresso and cappuccino, not really knowing their beans or anything, but he basically hired me on the spot after that. And I was like, okay, that was pretty easy. So it wasn't really a verbal interview with it or anything, but they were expanding their farmers market program. So I think in a few days after that, I just worked the farmers market.
Oh, okay. So
I kind of just was thrown into it.
So did you spend much time working at Linden, or?
It was It was I was doing both. So I was doing
Got it.
farmers markets and then the kiosk.
Got it.
What we refer to it as the kiosk.
Right. I
Yeah.
know from some experience many years after where what you're talking about, at least, that there's a pretty tight community of
Yeah.
regulars. And it's was
And they're
that
still friends. Yeah.
was that already kind of happening back when you
Yeah.
started? Yeah.
I mean, when I was starting there was definitely a group of people that would meet every morning, hang out across the street. And I think they all are, or most of them are still pretty much friends, which is really amazing.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, Hayes Valley itself has changed so much. And
So much.
so that was a really special time there, though. It also was the time when Blue Bottle wasn't as big and the lines weren't as crazy. So we had time to talk to people. And
Right.
yeah.
Take us through the rest of your time with Blue Bottle, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so it was such a small company that I felt like they were, that I was starting to wear a lot of different helmets and I was getting promoted pretty fast with things. And I think mainly because I was pretty young then. I think mainly because no one wanted those positions and there was only 8 employees. So, and I was very willing because I was just open-eyed and just really liking what I was doing and wanting to help out as much as I can. But I became the catering manager, and then they needed someone to run the kiosk, so I started managing the kiosk.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes I was doing both at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started expanding and opening up more locations like Mint Plaza, Ferry Building, MoMA, and those were all kind of happening at the same time. So I was just kind of going with the flow of it all. And then at one point I was managing 2 locations. They opened a new cafe in Oakland, and I was still managing in San Francisco and Hayes Valley. And then, a few years passed and I was just I think I was overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And I also just needed a change.
Mm-hmm.
An opportunity came up for New York. They were expanding in New York and
Oh, wow.
out there. So I was offered a position to do retail managing out there. So I moved.
Wow.
I mean, that was kind of fast, but
Was that open? Did you open the shop in New York?
not initially. I think they started expanding in 2010, and I moved down in 2011 to help with their further expansion,
Okay.
which was Chelsea, Rockefeller, Tribeca. So I was there for 1 year, and I think that's what really helped me grow as a person and also give me the confidence to do my own thing.
Yeah. So
New York is no joke. Yeah.
we don't have to go into too much depth about your time in New York, but what was it that brought you back?
I initially moved to New York, even though I was given that job opportunity. I was going to New York. I was supposed to go with someone else, my significant other of that time.
Mm-hmm.
That person ended up not moving with me. And I think that really broke my heart. And I was just really just dealing with self-strengthening and just finding my individualism again.
Mm-hmm.
And New York, of course, was really great for that because I kind of just didn't have a choice to strengthen besides just staying down and being sad.
Right.
But eventually I was given the opportunity to come back to San Francisco because the person in my position in the Bay Area was going on maternity leave and someone needed to fulfill her position.
Okay.
I should also mention that she's now my sister-in-law.
Oh, wow.
Crazy enough.
And so that is your nephew or niece?
She's my sister-in-law.
But the baby that she went on maternity leave for?
Oh, the baby is my nephew. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it all worked out.
So I think I never really wanted to be in New York, and I just happened to be there as a stepping stone. I think for what the universe put out for me was that I needed that for strengthening.
Mm-hmm.
with all that sadness and all that. So I never really wanted to move to New York, and that opportunity in the Bay Area came up, and I decided to move back to the Bay Area.
So did you come back to San Francisco right away?
I did come back to San Francisco. I lived in the Lower H. One of my best friends moved out of her apartment, and her roommate was looking for a roommate, and it all was, it just all coincided with each other.
So what kind of role was it that you were filling in for your now sister-in-law?
It was managing the retail managers.
Okay, was that
go on.
Is that an office job, or?
It was mainly meeting with all the different managers at the different locations.
Okay.
Individually or at a group meeting and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And so what year would this have been?
This is 2012. So I lasted in New York for 1 year. And so I should also mention that I was working on my business plan for like 5 years before I actually opened. Mm-hmm. And Blue Bottle was aware of that. And I've met with James Freeman, at that time, just for advice and things like that. So they were always aware of my idea of wanting to do my own thing. And it was great. And I always felt open to being open about my intention. Mm-hmm. And I think that really helped a lot with my resources.
You didn't have any kind of like entrepreneurial or business owner history up to that point. Where do you think this came from?
So I think wearing all those different hats at Blue Bottle really helped me just kind of form my ideas for my business plan. It's kind of like seeing the pros and cons of what I was already doing. Mm-hmm. And I really was I think I had a Google Doc, and I just made notes of just ideas that I wanted to manifest. Mm-hmm. Pros and cons of things that worked out layout wise and whatnot. But it's true, with the small business aspect, I didn't really have much knowledge. But working with vendors and things like that, I already had connections just from my Blue Bottle resources.
Was it scary?
It was definitely scary, but I think also being really open with what I wanted to do. And I was pretty open about it with my friends and things like that. Mm-hmm. Eventually, someone just approached me. His name is Bob Rosner. And he said, if you ever need help with anything, let me know. We believe in you. And he said his friend Rick Holmstrom also would be interested in helping me open Pinhole Coffee. So they've kind of been my business partners since the very beginning. And I think that really helped in many ways.
Yeah, that'll get you some confidence, right?
Yeah. Because before that, I really was trying to do it on my own. I actually was going to move back to Chicago and open Pinhole Coffee in Chicago. So that there was almost a Pinhole Coffee Chicago. But that was just me using my own funds and not really understanding how permits worked and just all that stuff. So moving back to San Francisco, it just felt right. And I had the people to guide me.
Well, for one, am glad it's not in Chicago. Maybe someday. So did you already have the name Pinhole, and where did that come from?
I remember one of my good friends, Jill Tolfa, said we should just make a list of things that you like. And then, so I think that, she worked at Blue Bottle at the time too. And we just had a notebook individually of just things. And we'd meet up for lunch and just pick out a word from our notebooks, from our notes, and then just say it out loud. Mm-hmm. So Pinhole is one of them because I really enjoyed pinhole photography. Mm-hmm. One of my old bosses from Chicago Tourism is Emily Long, and she was a pinhole photographer. So she introduced me to the concept. Mm-hmm. So we said Pinhole Coffee. Oh, that works. And it just stuck. Another friend gave me the advice that you want to pick a name that you wouldn't mind hearing 100 times in a day. So, and that's true. After 6 years, it's very, very true.
That's such good advice. Oh my God. So was there, Was there overlap between the end of your time with Blue Bottle and opening, or did you have time off and then open? Like, how did that all work?
Yeah, there was. And luckily, Blue Bottle was open to that idea. So I ended up finding a space in Bernal Heights, and, I signed the lease for it. So for like 3 months, we were doing the build out and things like that, but I was still helping as much as I can at Blue Bottle, in just all these different positions, even if it was just baristaing, which was fun because it got me to just still stay in the game of making coffee and connecting with people.
Right.
And then they let me just say whenever I was ready to leave to let them know.
That's so cool.
So they've always been very, very supportive.
Nice.
It's amazing.
How stoked were you when you found the spot?
I was very happy because for 5 years, there's more background story with that, but for 5 years, I was finding spaces and they would fall through last minute. And of course it made sense because I didn't really know what I was doing prior to actually finding the perfect spot in Bernal Heights.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I found the spot in Bernal Heights is I was actually looking at a space in the Lower Haight where I was living, and I needed a plumber for one to take a look at the space. And my business partner, Bob Rosner, told me about Lauren Haynes, who is a plumber in Bernal Heights, who's also his plumber.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called her and she said, "Oh, I actually have a building that I want a cafe in. I live in that building.
What?
Would you be interested in taking a look at it?" And I was really set in this Lower Haight space because it was just very interesting and it was close to where I lived. But I think I was in the Rainbow parking lot, and I just left and drove to Bernal Heights and met her at 231 Cortland Avenue. And there was no walls or anything, but it was a corner space, and I just kind of imagined it there. And it felt like a vortex, that corner. So, and then, I was still going after that Lower Haight space, but
What's in that space now in Lower Haight? Or is anything
I don't,
there?
oh, maybe you might know. It's that one space. It's, let's see, in between, is it Webster and Fillmore? Wait, is there a Webster Street there?
There is. Yeah.
Is Webster and Fillmore parallel to each other?
They are, yeah.
Yes. So in that block, there's a circular window. It's like a very interesting just circle window.
There's like, isn't Kate's Kitchen down there?
I think it's further
down,
further east.
And did you say, so that the spot that eventually became Pinhole, did you say that the landlord is a plumber, or?
She's a plumber, yeah.
So two birds with one stone.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, she's really amazing. And so when that space fell through in the Lower Haight, then I was more active with wanting to make that Bernal Heights location work. But me not knowing much about build out and things like that, I got really nervous. But then I was just looking through my Rolodex of just contacts, and a name came up in my mind named Ben Fromagen, and the Blue Bottle kiosk in Hayes Valley, above that was an architecture firm. And he was one of the few people that would actually talk to the baristas in Hayes Valley. And I thought of him for my project, or just to understand things. And he became my architect.
Nice.
And he was just very amazing. And we just worked well together on a creative level. He was just very open to my ideas, and found out he was also a wood broker. So a lot of the wood that's in our space was recycled material from other projects. But also Lauren, her being a plumber and her working on the entirety of her building, she had an amazing contractor named Jason Kodas. And he also became one of the best people I could ever work with, and respectful. So my team was slowly starting to form.
Mm-hmm. And so what, when did you guys start in on building it out, and when did you open?
So with every city build out, especially
Yeah.
in San Francisco, it takes
Yeah.
time. Someone gave me the advice that you want to pick a date and then add 6 months after that.
Mm,
So we signed the lease in November of 2015. And we couldn't really do much until certain permits were signed and
right.
whatnot, but there were some things we could do. So we kind of started doing build out, I think, in February of 2014.
Okay.
Um, and we opened August 12th. Oh, I'm sorry. We opened September 12th, 2014.
Wow. So 5+ years.
Yep.
Nice.
Amazing years.
Is there anything in those 5 years you want to talk about, or do you want to go ahead and talk about the reality now?
So when I first opened, there's a blog called Bernal Heights,
Mhm.
and they announced
Todd, right?
Yeah,
Todd
you know
something?
Todd. Yeah, well,
Todd
he's not really.
Lapton?
Yeah, he's not really running it anymore, but it's just
Oh,
now like a Facebook group. Sadly,
okay.
there is, just for your reference, there's a new blog called Bernal Heights.
Oh,
Someone
cool.
else is taking over kind of what he was doing.
Cool.
Yeah. So, anyways, Bernal would announce we were opening, and there was so much backlash as far as comments and things like that. Just because it was, if you just look at it, it's a new coffee shop, and there's a lot of coffee shops in Bernal Heights already. So, and people are, old school there, and
Yeah.
so I had to stop reading the comments because they weren't very supportive, and I was kind of getting sad about it. But
I think
I was just
stop reading the
happy.
comments is good
Yeah,
advice for everyone.
yeah. Beyond actors, don't read.
Stop reading comments and YouTube or Twitter replies. Just stop.
Oy vey. I know. Yelp reviews too.
Oh no.
So I just remember that. But what I would do is, when we weren't opened yet, I would do little pop-ups and give out free coffee in our dusty, no-walled space, just to get to know the community.
Right.
And doing that, I think having that human connection really helped solidify that our intentions were for the good. It was being opened by a minority as well. And slowly the community started gravitating towards our corner.
Nice.
And then we opened.
Nice.
It did feel like, though, a lot of convincing for the first year or so. Right.
A little, it is one of those neighborhoods, like I think you said, it's like tight-knit. Not wary of outsiders, but I would think, like, especially opening a business, they're like, what is this? What's the meaning of this? Yeah.
That's funny. Living in Hayes Valley for so long, I actually didn't know what Bernal Heights was. I heard of it, but I felt like people were so protective of their neighborhood that they didn't want people to come there.
Right.
For the longest time, I thought Bernal Heights was Daly City.
That's awesome.
Oh, I should also mention too, in 2014, when we were building out, Redfin announced that Bernal Heights is the hottest neighborhood in the country.
I think I remember
that was during our build out.
Oh.
And I was like, thank God we signed that lease.
Yeah, I was going to say, good timing. Yeah, just wait till after we sign.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I remember that. Did that come and go?
Well, that was, I feel like, the first rush of just housing going up a lot, and when things became $1 million or whatever.
The dawn of that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, you've managed to stay open 5.5 years, so congratulations. And counting, I should say. Absolutely. So yeah, do you want to talk about running a coffee shop in the time of COVID-19?
Yeah, sure.
So things were going really well, and then along came this fucking virus.
We were having actually a really great year where our numbers were a lot higher than prior years starting in 2020. And then when it slowly became just like people were starting to talk about COVID-19 and coronavirus, Pinhole started taking precautions kind of on the earlier side than everyone else. I think for one, just kind of being paranoid with things, but also my staff were concerned. So we slowly started taking, like the condiment bar down, starting to do more just sanitized wiping on a regular basis and things like that. And then it was announced that we had a shelter in place. So being a business owner, just kind of panic mode kicked in.
Right.
And just like all my other friends who are small business owners, we just had to kind of think of some creative ways of just how to sustain ourselves.
Right.
And our staff. So for like the first month that we had to be closed, we still paid our staff,
Nice.
which was very important to me, is just to take care of them, make sure they're being taken care of. And we were able to do that by the community donations and things like that.
Rad.
So that definitely helped us out a lot.
How big is your staff?
There's roughly, there's 12 of us actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it's very diverse group of people. Some people live in the neighborhood. Some people commute from other parts of the city. So, and people stay for a long time, it seems, or they leave and come back, which is, I feel like I'm their mom. So it's nice when they come back to mama.
So during the initial shelter in place, what were you doing with your hours? Right
for
off the
me
bat?
personally, I was just applying for grants and loans like crazy. Just kind of reading about all the different things and just understanding business more. And just trying to remind myself of my intentions and why I'm doing this and why I want to sustain my business. So it's kind of like falling in love with my business again.
Oh, wow.
Because you want to do as much as you can to protect it. And it is a lot of just things in your mind of just how do you sustain this in this economy right now and during this crisis right now.
Has it been kind of like a series of adjustments?
Yes.
Right? Because it's, I feel like, every day or every week is like, what's new, what's different. And also I'm guessing you have to see how your customers react, right?
And it's just about safety as well.
Right.
It's like we could have stayed open if we wanted to, but that just didn't seem responsible for me. So I started off by just updating my online store and creating a donation button, and also preparing just like gift cards people could buy in advance, which was a good recommendation by a customer. And that blew up really fast. Like people were very, very supportive with that. And that did get me through 1 month,
Right.
And then as the weeks progressed, I was just like, I really miss making coffee for the community. What can I do to do that in a safe manner? And then I thought about doing the pop-ups with a very, very limited service. So I was just doing drip coffee and iced coffee and bean sale. And then being there, I was like, well, I think there's a way I could do it where I could make espresso for people and not really announce it as much, to not create the long lines. Because for me, it felt so irresponsible to make lines. So for the last couple of weeks, I've been doing almost a full menu, just no pastries or drinks that take a really long time, such as pour overs.
Right. And are you setting up, I haven't been over there, but are you setting up the way a lot of businesses are, where you're at the door and customers don't come in? Or
I'm allowing one person in at a time. Of course, they have to wear a mask with the new mandate, but also for safety. I ordered a sneeze guard for our register. So we have that. And then I have this huge hand sanitizer that I waited a month for. So that's right by the register. And then I'm wiping down the screens after each transaction if people have to sign or add a tip. So it's those precautions and a lot of signage.
Right. Have you done the outside? I know you said you don't want lines, but have you done the 6 foot tape?
Yeah.
Marking?
and my good friend David Petrelli, who's a street artist, he and I created rainbow arches as the 6-foot marks.
Yes.
So one of the greatest things about the shelter in place and just having to be inside and things like that, seeing our customers and just how all of them, as well as us, we've just slowed down. And I feel like there's been so much gratitude with just slowing down, where people are actually taking time to say thank you to each other. And the respect has just been amazing. So that's why I noticed with doing my pop-ups is just that kind of human connection with our customers, which I think people in the service industry, we always talk about in our inner group, just how there is that disconnect with some of our customers, and just how we are kind of different, and how sometimes people don't say thank you, and how it does affect us. And I think during this time, I feel like with taking away a service that they get every day, and it goes both ways, that there's just gratitude for us to our customers, and I feel like customers have to people that, you know, make their coffees or things like that. So I think that's a great silver lining.
That was JoEllen Depakakibo. Join us next week when we'll get to know San Francisco Supervisor Hillary Rogan. Music for Storied San Francisco is by Otis McDonald. Photography is by Michelle Kilfeather. The show is hosted and produced by me, Jeff Hunt. Our website is storiedsf.com, where you can browse more than 100 episodes and help support us by buying merchandise from our store. Please follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. If that's Apple Podcasts or iTunes, please do us a quick favor and rate and review the show. And if you have any feedback or people you think should be on the podcast, our email is storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Stay healthy and stay safe.